Thank you everyone for joining us today. Let me just do a quick introduction of the folks that we have here from DLT today. So myself, Shannon Hamilton, I'm responsible for the growth and adoption of our platform in North America. I've got Neeraj Srivastava on the call. He's our Chief Technology Officer and has been a part of Hyperledger probably since its inception, I think it's fair to say. And then JD Hurst, who's going to do our product demo for you. He's our sales engineer. So thank you for the opportunity, and we're looking forward to sharing and having some good Q&A as we end the session. So what are we going to speak about today? We really want to talk about what we understand is the world's largest enterprise implementation of a blockchain solution that is powered by Hyperledger with Walmart Canada and its national network of about 65 carriers, how that's helping address issues around supply chain visibility. I think importantly, talk about the impact and significance. So again, when you've rolled out a project at this scale outside of a POC, really being able to quantify the benefits is significant and important. So we want to explain that. And then I'm going to let Neeraj talk about the how we do it. So cover a little bit more about the technology, and then do a short demonstration and open it up for Q&A. So let's talk a little bit about what the project is so that it can level set with everyone. When we've looked at supply chain specifically, and on the right is literally examples of the complexity of information and data that needs to get exchanged between organizations within a supply chain. Often, companies are meant to work together, but systems are not. You've got disparate systems, multiple parties, and the ability to synchronize information across all of these points is very challenging. And, we've definitely seen that exacerbated through COVID. But the ability to leverage blockchain technology in order to create a single source of truth that multiple parties can work off of is an inherent benefit of the technology. And within supply chain, when you can eliminate the friction that exists when information can't be shared in real time and across multiple parties, it is a significant game changer and contributes and creates significant value. So we are an enterprise SaaS platform. We do provide that single source of truth. So, this will be familiar to most on the phone, but, distributed ledger technology really allows for the elimination of duplication of information, that shared ledger, the sharing of information simultaneously between multiple parties. Works really well within supply chain when you compare that with the smart contracts and the ability to use data in a contextualized way to automate business processes, create that visibility and surface information in an alerts type of way. You can do a lot when you can get in front of information versus responding to it after the fact, and underpins the whole process with commercial trust. So these are the inherent benefits that we've seen through the technology and what our platform provides. So within supply chain specifically, what I want to just discuss briefly is the typical shipment process that takes place when two organizations are looking to reconcile information. And you can look at this from a shipper, a beneficial cargo owner, and the carriers. You could look at this through a supplier and a purchaser. We've seen this really hold true in both types of scenarios. But there's an exchange of information. There's an agreement that needs to take place between what service is being, which service is being requested, and what service is actually being provided. So in freight and logistics, a tender, which contains all of the information that is required for the carrier to provide the service, is known upfront. There's a number of known pieces of information that take place. And then while the goods are being transported, there are variable charges. These are referred to as accessorial charges that take place. And those unknown pieces of information in this specific process create a lot of friction. And that's obviously because they're unknown, but it's because the carrier has their source of truth. They know that, let's say, in the course of a delivery, they had to wait for 3 hours when they arrived at a shipper's location to unload the goods. And the shipper is going to want to validate those 3 hours because they don't want to pay for extra charges that they weren't expecting. Once the goods are delivered, you're in a situation, usually it's a week to 10 days, a carrier will create an invoice. it'll get issued. And then in the case of Walmart, it's presented to Walmart, and they're going to wait for the payment terms for that specific carrier. It could be 30 to 45 days, at which point they're going to start the process of trying to reconcile why the charges were not what they expected. And this goes back and forth until both parties come to a resolution, and eventually the invoice gets paid. So it's a lengthy process. There's a lot of reconciliatory steps that are compounded by the fact that both parties are operating off of their own data sets. So how do we specifically address this? So distributed ledger technology is really great for what we've seen, eliminating reconciliation. So it's been completely eliminated in this business process, and I'll explain a little bit how. So as I showed in the previous 11-step process, the invoice is actually created after the goods are already delivered. In this case, the events happened, the invoice is created, and then the reconciliation around the event happens. What's different in the way that we've deployed our platform and how we've built the solution with Walmart is the tender, the shipment details that happens in step number 1. The invoice is created with all of that information in step 1. We already know the known charges. We know where the goods are being picked up. We know where the goods are going. We know how many miles or kilometers that shipment is going to take. And we have all of the negotiated rates and carrier contract details that we can use to populate that information. Then as the goods are in transport through step 2 and step 3, what's happening here is IoT data. So all of the information about the shipment's whereabouts are flowing in through our platform and are automatically calculating all of those variable charges. This information is being shared in real time between both parties. So not only can the carrier see this invoice building, and I'm going to show you an example of this in a minute, but you're seeing that information populated in real time for both parties. So if the carrier wants to validate something or Walmart wants to understand why those variable charges existed, they can look on the platform in real time, and they can also reference the IoT information that is the support for those charges. So that information is being populated onto the invoice. So when the goods are delivered, the invoice is complete. There is no need to create an invoice. There's no proof of delivery required because all parties have agreed that the IoT data provides that support. And the invoice is basically available on the platform for the carrier to click submit. Once that's submitted, it's considered approved by Walmart. There is no approval or audit step needed in order to look at that invoice again. Again, the nature of the platform is the transparency, but it's also the agreed to and upfront nature of all of the information that each participant has agreed to that has allowed Walmart to say, we accept that information, and it goes directly into Walmart's ERP system to be approved and paid. So really the steps on the bottom are all of the non-value add steps that have been eliminated through the process. And the benefits are that, there's manual work that's been removed, the carriers are getting paid much faster, and they've got complete transparency and visibility through the entire workflow. So what does that look like? A little bit for those that may not be as familiar with sort of freight invoicing, but I'll just walk through this with an example of the invoice. So once the tender is issued, all of that information can be populated into the invoice. So these are the known charges that I mentioned, all of that upfront information. So that's happening real time on the platform. Then as the shipment is taking place, all of the variable charges that you see towards the bottom, the weight charge, the shunt, detention, TARP charges, any of those variable charges, they can be updated in real time based on the IoT information. So if wait time is happening, you can see that there's a small charge there that's being applied to the invoice. So that information is validated with the IoT information. It is then populated into the invoice and presented to Walmart with the total calculations for that specific event, and goes directly into a paid status. So impact and significance, what we've seen through deploying the platform that is very different than other, sort of blockchain POCs. So first and foremost, this has been deployed across Walmart's national network of carriers, so 65 carriers. It'll process about 500,000 loads for Walmart. So this is a business critical process, and has been up and running for a number of months, and is delivering tangible results. Being able to digitize this process and eliminate the need for reconciliation is a huge process improvement. What we've seen with Walmart since the implementation is eliminating friction in the process has also enabled the ability to do things that they weren't able to do previously, like quick pay. So when you've taken friction out of the process, you can now offer vendor discounts based on already having the information you need to settle an invoice, and really is surfacing information that can be used in other ways to improve business processes. So route planning and optimization as an example. You start to know which routes are causing more variable charges and how can you get in front of those and maybe optimize those in a better way. So Walmart, really fantastic customer to be working with, but just to kind of share some of the specific examples that we've seen. So in the industry, it's not uncommon that disputes exist around invoices to the tune of about 70%. So that's 70, and that was the case with Walmart. With the implementation of distributed ledger in our platform, that's now under 2%. So I think as of last week, we were sitting around 1.3, 1.5%. So this is a significant improvement. And virtually, I think this has been another quote from another executive there at Walmart, but it's almost rare to see a situation now where there is a discrepancy or a dispute on an invoice. And really, we started this project off thinking that this was a freight payment platform, but really being viewed now more as an information platform with the ability to surface this, business information in real time, so that Walmart can use the information to help make decisions in other parts of their business as well. So very impactful, large-scale deployment. I'll also say that the production pilot that we went into with Walmart's largest carrier, Bison Transport, was done in a little over 60 days. So the already configured nature of the platform has allowed us to be able to move quite quickly. And I'll use that as an opportunity to introduce Neeraj in a minute. But this is also, I think, just a great example of the types of information that can be surfaced very easily now around the freight transportation business that Walmart can use. Carriers also have visibility to the data that they can use and manage for their business purposes as well. So it goes beyond just the reconciliation and becomes more about the visibility within the entire supply chain. So what I think everybody is most excited in hearing is how we do it. So I'm going to introduce Neeraj, our Chief Technology Officer, to give us some insights into how our platform works and how we're using Hyperledger.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shannon. Hello, everyone. This is Neeraj. I'm CTO here at DLT Labs, and also just so that I've been in this space since a very long time, almost 2011, and I can say I've done more number of projects than anyone else on this planet. I've been, be it Project Ubin or Project Jasper with Bank of Canada, I've seen a lot since 2012. Working with RBCs or R3, I've been going through all those things. And what basically I and a few of our partners we saw was there has been lots of use cases which were developed right from day one, right? People were talking about money transfer, people were talking about supply chains, people were talking about contract management, credential verification, you name it. And there were also people who were talking about making a car fly, right? If you're in blockchain space, I'm sure you would have remembered cases of ICOs and all, where some were saying we'll make rocket fly, or we'll make car fly, we'll make house fly. So people thought that anything and everything can be solved using blockchain. And this is what like, no, this is where we differentiated ourselves. What we said was that, hey, you know what, we cannot make car fly, but if someone can make a car fly, we can track it. And that's what we have done. We have seen, I myself and like, some of my partners, like we have seen lots of use cases. And we also saw that, hey, you know what, different companies are born, there are different projects were done. But what was surprising to me was that, why do we need different platforms to do, means although the use case look different, but you don't need different platforms. If someone would have seen the use cases, right, like, whether you're talking about money transfer, and it might sound absurd, but if you're talking about money transfer, or if you're talking about tracking a person or supply chain, at the core of it, it's all proper data management, right? Like, definitely blockchain is bringing a very new format of data management, but at the core of it, like, because we also did lots of projects, we developed different projects, but every time when we were doing the project, we said that we are doing the same thing again and again. It's just that it needed a scientific view to it. It needed an engineer's eye, I'll say, right? Like, because we are all engineers here, right? Like, it needed an engineer eye to figure out that, there is a common, right? Like, among all the use cases, there's something common. And that's what, like, we learned in, like, since 2012, 13 and onwards, like when we were working, this is where, like, that's what we learned, that, there are common elements, right? Like, whatever use case, and what I mean by use cases, like useful use cases, like, use case that can be on the blockchain, we found that common element. And that's where we came up with this concepts of DLT Labs core platform, where we developed the platform where, whether we are talking about tracking or tracing, supply chain, value transfer, contract compliance, provenance, credential, privacy, consent management, record management, identity, right? Like, you name it. I'm not saying it's all about that 80-20 rule. I'm not saying 100% of it, but it's all about 80-20 rule. The 80% of the use cases which goes on blockchain, they all have something common. And that's why, right, like, it goes on blockchain, right? Like, these are all interlinked. And what we did was we took the common portion, we created certain, without going through the much of the technicalities, right? We built a very solid engine which can serve them all, right? Like, and that's what, like, has been one of our most secret recipe, where when a customer like Walmart or anyone else, like, be it, like, we have been working with certain government, and be it Thailand or India, right? Like, there are a bunch of them where we are working. It's we can configure them. We can, like, we don't have to start from the scratch, basically within weeks of configuration, right? And that's what, like, our secret recipe has been. Within weeks of configuration, we can deliver whatever they need, because if someone is really choosing a blockchain, then the platform what we have, that can satisfy their need, right? Because there are only so many use cases which can go on blockchain. Not everything can go on blockchain. That was one problem what we solved, and we have solved, right? Another part was, if you see that we have written a slide, standard legacy integration. See, when blockchain came, right, like, people were talking about destruction, and, it will take the banking away, and, like, people are scared, and like, it was a good like, 2013, 14, 15, 16ish, right? Like, people, like, I'll say, like, I don't, or let me put it this way, like, in terms of better word, there were certain enterprises who were scared that, blockchain will change the governance, they will change the banking system, this, that, I don't know, like, what I know was, it's a really good technology. It is a ledger, right? Like, just like mainframes, I'll say, like, more than 98 or 95% of the banks uses mainframe for maintaining the ledger. It's a very solid ledger where the data can be stored, right? But it's not something that, it needs to display something. Basically, in today's IT system, there is a gap. There's a gap where blockchain is needed, right? Like, that technology was not there before, but now that technology is there, and there was a gap, and somewhere way or the other, that gap was fulfilled by developing certain complex algorithms, complex systems, complex, I don't know, like, it was a very complex system what was trying to solve that problem. And this is here we got blockchain, right, which can solve that problem much easily. So people do ask, right, like why blockchain, why not blockchain? But it's the same thing, right? Like for example, mobile apps. You can have mobile apps on the mobile browser. Why do you need a specific dedicated mobile app built in Android or iOS? Why? Because it makes it easier. It's easier to maintain. It's better technology. Similarly, right, like, most of the problem on the blockchain, yes, it can be solved, like, right, like, for example, payment system, right, what all the bankings and financial system uses. Yes, like, it can be solved with it. But at the same time, right, like, blockchain can solve it much easier. It's much more efficient, right, at much less cost. So that's where the concept of blockchain comes in. But the problem was, one of the big problem was integration of blockchain with the legacy system, because no enterprise, like be it Walmart or any of the banks or governments, they are not going to say that, hey, you know what, take away all the existing system and let's use blockchain, right? That's what people were envisioning. It might happen couple of decades, but it won't happen that fast. So, and at the same time, blockchain, guys, if you remember or if you have read it, blockchain is an asynchronous system. It is not a synchronous. Today, the IT system, what we use in most of the cases, it's a synchronous system, but blockchain is an asynchronous. So our problem was, and today actually it's not our problem, basically it has been the blockchain space, and that's why many of the projects has failed when they talk about integration. Connecting a synchronous with an asynchronous system, it's not that easy. And this is where we have built, like we have spent years and years with thousands and thousands of hours of like development and research, where we have built certain integrators which can connect asynchronous and synchronous system together. It's not easy. It needs a whole lot of effort, but now we have made it really easy. And definitely, like Walmart has been one of the biggest flagship project what we have done, but there has been a lot more complex and sophisticated project we have done, where we have proven that a synchronous and an asynchronous system can be done. And we have also written, like, certain white papers, and more than happy to talk about it in certain, like, other webinars. So that's one of our, and definitely the security and compliance, I need not to say, right, like, blockchain does come with more than bank grade security. It's basically like, it's the most secure thing, like, possible, right? Like, as much as we know about algorithm or security or cryptography, like it's there, right? Like, you can't just make it anything more secure, because think of, even if you're using database and people think it's safe, but what you do in order to, like, make database secure, you encrypt it, you timestamp it, right? That's how you do. Moving forward, another part what has really helped us, like, to achieve what we want to achieve was this modularity and reusability, right? When we are talking here, like we at DLT Labs, it's not just one-off stuff, right? It's not just that we work on one use case. We are trying to work on a horizontal technology. We are working on a technology which can serve or which can cater hundreds or thousands of use cases. And in order to do it, we have to keep things very modular, because another reason of modularity, why we need to make everything modular is, and by modular, what we mean is that today, suppose, or let's take the example, right? Today we have a blockchain, tomorrow something new come up, right? And technology is advancing. So they are clients, or right, like who are investing, who are buying our product. It should not be that, our system should become older, right? Like, it should not be that over the time a new technologies come out and, like, we are way behind, and all the clients who has invested here, right? Like, they are left behind. And this was one of the reasons why initially not many companies were investing in blockchain, because they were fear, right, that which blockchain will work, which will not work, this, that, right? Like, or blockchain is a solution and not a solution. And this is where, like, with the help of ASICs stand for application specific integrated kernels. And yes, like, these are like, kernels setting a layer behind the products and a layer above the blockchain, which connects the blockchain with rest of the system, right? And the benefit is that today, whichever blockchain we are using, suppose tomorrow a better database comes, a better blockchain comes, or something else come, or, like, people talk about, right, like, a new type of computer is coming, quantum computer is coming. This is the modularity what we have, that easily we can migrate the data from one system to another system, also the ASIC allows that integration, right? Like, without changing the data, without changing the interface, everything can be connected. And that's the power of ASIC. And this is what we are basically showing. So as you can see very clearly, right, like, in the middle, there is a web service, that Globe, which is connecting with the smart contract. Basically, that request and response is happening between asynchronous and synchronous world. Similarly, like if things changes in future, none of the our client investment, our effort via DLT, we will not go out of business. We will just upgrade. For example, we have been using for identity and solution, we started using OpenID Connect. Initially, we were not using, right? We were using our homegrown solution, but now with the advent, right, and OIDC is even newer than blockchain. We were able to upgrade ourselves. We were able to adopt new technology to make our system more and more secure. Like, one of the most robust and most secure, so far we have seen or we have tested. Next.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I think we're going to move. Neeraj, is there anything else you want to add before we go in and give a quick demonstration of how the platform works?
No, I think that's pretty much with the limited time. If guys have any question or anything, more than happy, to answer it around. Otherwise, let's jump to the demonstration so that people can see, right, how exactly the thing works. Thanks.
Perfect. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to say over to you, JD.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so logging in now to show the platform here. I'm logged in as one of the third-party carriers in our demo environment. And I'm just gonna bank off what Shannon went over with the Walmart solution and really show how now our platform works and really what we solved for Walmart. I also saw some questions on IoT devices, so I'd like to mock up what a charge looks like and how that IoT device tracks that charge, and then how that's also represented on the blockchain. So logged in now, I'm on the workflows page, and what this is this third-party carrier is now seeing all of the shipments they have with Walmart that are currently in progress or have already been completed. So what they're able to do is actually open up each of these shipments in this view and see exactly where that shipment's at. So each touch point that has been made by another organization has been date and time stamped, so they know exactly what has happened and when that has happened. So just opening up a couple here, we can see that this one has been completely paid. You can see the full timeline completed, and you're able to actually even see some that have been in dispute and stopped at an auditor level. But what I want to do now is just highlight some of the data points and how the smart contracts really come into play with a specific shipment. So I've clicked into one specific shipment here, and you can see a lot of information on the page, but what this really is now is all of the data points that we've configured and defined for this solution are being now tracked. So you can see such things such as the load ID or any of the city locations where the shipment's coming from and where it's going to, that end destination. And then anything on blue on the page is actually a smart contract that has been pre-configured with the contract that was established with Walmart and their third-party carrier. And what this is now is all of these calculations are happening in real time and they're being automated. So really what it does, what Shannon was also discussing, is that invoices started before or really when the shipment even starts. And all of the calculations are happening in real time, so they know exactly what is being costed rather than waiting for the shipment to be completed and going back and trying to dispute and figure out exactly what is the final cost of the shipment. So at any point, they know exactly what that shipment is. Scrolling down, they have a view also of a chart, clean, organized view of exactly what the values are within the actual shipment. So they can see a previous value and a new value and any charges that have occurred that are taking effect on that new value. So what I'd like to do now is mock up with a change or a charge that will happen with the IoT devices. So with the solution that we really solved, and a big problem that was happening before was there'd be a lot of disputes, and this was affecting that 70% dispute number that Shannon was discussing and how we really brought that down was there's a lot of disputes around wait time charges. So what was happening was the carrier would arrive at a Walmart distribution center and they would have to wait before they could complete the actual shipment. And the carrier would be charging Walmart on that time they'd have to wait, whether it be $50 per hour or whatever set charge they have with Walmart. So what we're able to do is take that set charge with that constant value, configure it in a smart contract, and then track those hours by the IoT devices connected up to our system. So what I'll do is a manual change here, but this is something that would be happening automatically. And this would be, we could make this say 3 hours the carrier had to wait. So I'm just updating now 3 hours. And as this happens now in the real world situation, all of these numbers will be automatically updated. So scrolling down to the bottom of the page again, once this updates, I'm able to see that there's an old record of that 0 hours and it's now been updated with 3 hours. Now the previous value will also be updated with a new value, and all of the members that are in play in this process will see what that charge is that's affecting that new value. So they'll see that that $150 has been added to that new value because of that constant $50 per hour charge. Now everything else on the page has been updated, and it's a shared space where everyone is seeing that same total updated. But what's really beneficial with our solution now is that either member can now go in, and even though that this shipment hasn't been fully completed, they're able to download an invoice. And this invoice is 100% secure and accurate because they know all of the contracts agreed upon beforehand, and those smart contracts updating that value automatically. So when I open this invoice now, I'm able to even see that 3 hour wait time charge updated within the invoice and that $150 added to that new total. So they know exactly, again, what this exact total cost is for this shipment, even though it hasn't been completed yet. And the last thing I just want to show quickly as well, when a transaction happens or a different touch point or a change or a charge, anything that occurs within the actual shipment, there would be a hash representation of that transaction then stored on the blockchain. So scrolling down here, I made that change a couple of minutes ago at 10:35 a.m. Eastern time. And we're able to now see that hash that actually represents that change of that 3 hours I added onto this shipment. And that's really what I wanted to show. Neeraj, did you want to discuss anything else within the platform?
That's great, JD. Thank you.
Yeah, so no, I think we have covered most part of it, and we see a bunch of questions there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing much from my side to add at this point.
Neeraj, I think one of the questions that's come up is why did we choose Hyperledger over other blockchain solutions?
Sure, that's an interesting one, and basically we can have a full webinar just on this topic. See, as I said, right, like, you know, I've seen this space evolving, right, starting with Bitcoin, moving on to then Ethereum came out, and then actually after that, like, you know, Hyperledger was formed thanks to, like, you know, people at Linux and like, you know, a bunch of people at IBM, right, like, you know, where basically this came out. Apart from Hyperledger, I know, like, you know, things have changed drastically now, but I've seen, as I said, like, you know, I've seen the space growing. Hyperledger, I can say, has been the only organization, or basically, sorry, like, you know, calling it organization, basically, like, you know, it's a free form, right? Like, you know, it's a place where we all have contributed, but not from cryptocurrency perspective. Sorry, like, you know, I'm not allowed to use that word, but that's really true. Before Hyperledger, like, you know, everyone was talking about, like, you know, coins, and use case of blockchain was just limited to how to transfer money, or how, like, you know, people can raise money, like, you know, all those stuff, right? Any other blockchain platform, if you will see, Hyperledger has been, and especially the Hyperledger Fabric, right, has been the first platform which basically saw, right, like, which basically took even what we were thinking, what I was thinking, that, the blockchain has much more use case. And it was one of the first platform where use cases can be built for enterprises, right? It was designed for business, right? Like, and we have seen that, over the time, right from the start of it, Hyperledger has grown in that way, right? Like, they have not switched away that, hey, you know what, let's go this way, let's go that route. That way, Hyperledger has been very stable. The form of governance is very good. You can contribute, you can be part of it. And especially like, people contributing towards the Hyperledger, they all, I'm talking about, like, source code and all, like, be it IBM's, right? Like, even we contribute a lot. We all are coming from an enterprise world. In short, like, long story short, Hyperledger Fabric specifically, and like, some of the other platform, is one of the most mature platform in the market. We have tested every blockchain platform. There are lots of, like, people say about it, but we don't go in believing that, what is written in white papers, but what we believe is, like, what is there in the source code perspective. Hyperledger, and especially like, Hyperledger Fabric, is one of the more solid source code which we have seen so far. And this is, we believe, is the only platform basically where you can run production grade system, right? Like, it's stable. We have been running for years and years. It's good. It's good in comparison to, like, any other platform. And above all, they don't do false promises. If you see the documentation and the real source code, it matches exactly. Unlike, like, other platform where they will say a lot in the white paper, but once you start playing with the system, it doesn't work. Right. So basically that has been a reason to stick with Hyperledger Fabric, but we are not just bound with it, right? Like, now Ethereum is also part of Hyperledger community, and we use Ethereum a lot, and it is also a very stable platform. It's just that the use case which can go on Ethereum is much different because of, like, privacy and security and the way the Ethereum has been designed. Like, when it comes to, like, real privacy, like, Fabric based on us, right? Like, is the way to go. And it's pretty obvious, like, Ethereum, even in the confined way, like, it's designed to share information with everyone without a control. Whereas Fabric, with the concepts of channels and, like, data encryption, like, when it comes to enterprise talk, privacy, like, it's much better. And that's why we have been sticking with Hyperledger Fabric. And definitely, but in terms of stability, Ethereum is equivalently good, but for a different type of use case.
Awesome. Neeraj, just another question about which specific Hyperledger framework?
It's Fabric, Hyperledger Fabric we have been using extensively, but there are others also, right, from there, like, which are really good, but specifically the use case what you saw has been built completely on using the Hyperledger Fabric framework.
Can you talk a little bit about the channels and the nodes, like who's managing data from a Walmart standpoint? Is it Walmart, the carriers, sort of who has authority and control over the data?
Sure. So see, the way it works is, right, like in case of Walmart is Walmart, and then there are carriers. In Canada, they are approx 70 carrier. So the way the system works is, and this is interesting, right? Like, in a platform, basically data needs to be segregated, right? Like, if Walmart is trying to talk with carrier 1, right, then carrier 2 should not see it. So there is a communication between Walmart and carrier 1 and Walmart and carrier 2, right? So whatever conversation or business deal between Walmart and carrier 1 is happening, Walmart and carrier 2 should not see it, right? And this is where, like, that's where the trust has to come in. And this is where only blockchain can do it. And that thing is done with the concepts of channel. So the way we have implemented is that when a carrier is onboarded, like, once you will see our onboarding process, it's a quick, like, it's like a regular sign up. You will, like, the way you do Facebook or Google sign up, like, it's a regular sign up. You will sign up within few minutes, you are onboarded. But behind the scene, a lot happens. Unlike, like, regular systems where basically when you are signing up, basically simply a record gets created in a database, right? Like, that you got sign up, right? Your record got created in a database row, that's it. No, here it's much more sophisticated. When a carrier is onboarded, a channel gets created automatically. A channel gets created between the Walmart and the carrier. And what is channel? It is a physical, sorry, it's a logical separation of data from the carrier to. As needed, it can be a physical, you can make it a physical separation also, but it's basically like, it's a complete logical separation where in any case, even by mistake also, carrier 1 cannot see the business transaction of carrier 2. So every time carrier is onboarded, it's a channel gets created, a contract gets deployed. Basically like, with every carrier is different, and there is different legal contracts between Walmart and each of the carrier. So based on the contract, a different smart contract automatically gets deployed. A certificates get generated. Basically, in short, a highway gets created between Walmart and carrier 1, and then Walmart and carrier 2. So basically they are, when we say there are 70 carriers, that means there are 70 highways between Walmart to all the carriers, where definitely Walmart can go to on all the highways, but every highway is dedicated to one of the carrier, and the carrier on their own, they can only like, travel on that highway. In terms of nodes, yes, like, basically in Fabric, there are peers, there are orderers, right? Like, so it's not that simple as like, in Ethereum where there are simple nodes and like, you distribute it. Hyperledger Fabric is much more sophisticated, and there's a reason why it is. So there are concepts of orderers, peers, right? Like, it's certificate authority. So what we have done is we have made sure that, it's distributed across the geography in North America, right? Like, definitely I cannot go like, because of security purpose where they are, but it's quite distributed, and it's so distributed that, the probability of the system going down is, I say like, is even, basically take it this way, our earth collapsing is more than the like, system going down, right? Like, so that's how we have distributed it, just to make sure that the system is completely reliable and 24/7 available.
Super, thank you. I'm just looking through some of the other questions. Marta, do you want to open it up for auditable Q&A, or should I just continue to go through the Q&A that's being submitted online?
Sorry, couldn't find my unmute. Please continue with the questions from the Q&A. I think this is a very good way to follow through. There is one question from Michael Graham that is asking about the modularity. And oh yeah, sorry, this question has been already answered. So yes, please continue with the questions. We have still 7 open questions, and if you have more questions, please submit them.
Perfect. Neeraj, do you want to talk a little bit? I could comment on it as well, but just on how this scales in different industries. Obviously, Walmart's a large organization, but how have you seen the platform or use cases differ in different sized organizations? And is there a role, or how does mobile apps play into the implementation of the solution?
Yeah, sure. No, a very good question. So see, right, and I've put it in the chat also, right? At the end of the day, if someone asks me like, who we are at DLT Labs, we are a distributed data management company. And I'll repeat, so we are a distributed data management company. We are horizontal, right? Like, our platform is horizontal, where lots of use cases can be done. And it's not that, we are the only one, right? Like, you talk about Oracle, you talk about SAP, right? Like, Google, right? Like, they are all horizontal platform where they are technology company, where they can cater hundreds or thousands of needs. And this is where we stand, right? Like, we are we are also on the, like, in the same page, right? Like, so when it comes to use cases, like, it can vary a lot. For example, the same platform, what we are using for here with Walmart Canada for invoice, you can call it invoice reconciliation, which is not the right thing to say, basically to manage the payment system, right? Like, it's managing the complete payment system between the Walmart and the carriers. The same platform we are using in like, in India for, like, a part of the government in order to, like, track basically students, right? Like, there's without going too much detail, right? There's a program in India where, like, once you do the certification, you get paid, and based on that, based on it, right? Like, you get jobs and all, but like, government want to track them, right? You can use it there. The same platform we have used in the past for in mining industry, right? Cobalt mining, right? Like, where you want to track and trace cobalt. But we are also like, we have basically the same platform can be used for contract management. On the other side, like completely contrary to this, like we have been working with someone where we are using the same platform for this COVID certification, right? Like, today you see, right, there are mobile apps or technology popping out, right? Like where now, because of this COVID, you want to get certified, right? Like, you want to go to the medical hospital, medical test centers or hospitals where basically you need a certificate before you travel to another province or another country that you don't have COVID. So the same platform can be used for certification where medical centers can give it to you. And then I think the question was also linked to the mobile app. On the mobile app, basically a secure QR code can come. And basically this is a very good use case of blockchain because blockchain is known for anonymity. And here, when it comes to the medical certificates of COVID, you want to tell the other party that, hey, you are COVID free, but you don't want to reveal your identity. And this is where like blockchain comes very, very, very handy, where medical test centers or hospitals can give you certificate without knowing exactly who you are. And the other party basically can verify that, hey, I don't have COVID or I have COVID. Right? If you're entering the malls or like cinema theaters, right, in coming days, like, they will be able to scan you. So without revealing my identity, I can also say that, hey, you know what, like, I don't have COVID or like, I was detected COVID. So there has been a whole lot of use cases, whole lot of angles, as I mentioned, few of them, right, where the same platform is being used all across, whether it is educational, insurance, specifically finance, like, in fintech space, there is extensive use case of it. So if in one word I have to say, if you think that you are transferring information, if there is a concept of intercompany information, if your enterprise is transferring information from your organization to any other organization, and you are not happy with the security or the way the information is being transferred, then basically you should talk to us once.
Perfect. Neeraj, I thought this was an interesting question. What features do you wish Hyperledger could offer, but that aren't currently available?
So that's an interesting one, but it can get really technical. But one of the things what we have seen is, right, and this is what I'm thinking, like, how much we should reveal, right? Like, because I sit on a bunch of advisory board and I just don't want to, reveal something internal. What we have seen is, right, in Hyperledger Fabric, basically, when you try to search any data, right, although they are using CouchDB, like, which is SQL based, where things can be done. But when you, here, take it this way, right, in case of Walmart, yeah, that will be a good example. Be it Walmart and all the carriers, right, they generate overnightly report, right? Like, they have batch systems, right? Like where some of the carriers we have seen, like, are even using mainframes. So basically they are mainframes running overnight and they want to generate report. So what the problem what we faced was that there's a Walmart and there are carriers and everyone wants to generate report overnight. So our system was not that busy during the daytime. But when it comes to night, we were seeing, like, okay, like, lots of companies, everyone wants to generate report, right? Because that time, during night time, their system is like rest of the system is not working. That's why they prefer generating reports at night time. And we are talking about, like, reports which takes hours and hours to generate. Like, we are talking millions and millions of data. But all of them were coming to our system at the same time. And with the native storage what is being offered with Fabric, like we have seen, like, it was creating a bottleneck, the way the data was being taken out and all those things. And initially it was taking, like, every report was taking like 6 hours, 8 hours, like, to generate that report. And this is where, right, like, we have done a whole lot of, like, re-engineering there, right, like, and again, without going into much of the detail, we have developed certain things where, like, reportings from like, which was taking 7-8 hours, and which any computer system basically would have taken 7-8 hours, right? Like, because 70 big companies, they're trying to like, fetch the data at the same time. It got reduced to like, 1 hour or less than an hour, right? Like, because we organize the data in a much efficient way, right? So there's nothing wrong with the Fabric. It's just that I think like if one feature like, which I've been proposing and like which we would like to see, like, a better data storage mechanism within Fabric, which can make report generation. I'm not talking about like, one or small report generation. I'm talking about where if a system like mainframe want to generate report overnight, like it should be much more effective. So far we have developed it, we have our own, but like, maybe like, one day if it is part of Fabric, I think everyone can utilize it in a much better way.
Sorry, I was on mute. One last question before Marta needs to take back and wrap up. Neeraj, what makes our platform different than some of the other like TradeLens, IBM type platforms out there?
Yeah, okay. So I think I've already answered in a way before, right? See, this was the whole point, right? Think of this way. You got Google, right? Or in your office, you are using Microsoft, right? Like Office 365, or you are using Google G Suite. So what do you prefer? Do you want to have like a separate company providing you chat, and another company providing you email, another company providing you storage, another company providing you forms, another company providing you desktop, or you want everything together, right? That's why, like, so when you buy your enterprise official needs, right, you go either with Office 365 or G Suite, or like, a few others, right? They are major players where you buy one package and you get everything, right? Like you are buying Microsoft Office 365, so you get Teams, you get means for video communication, you get emails, you get Outlook, you get shared drive, you get lots of stuff, right? You don't go and shop things individually that, hey, you know what, I want to buy video messenger, I want to buy calling system. It's a whole lot of work, right? But both will work, right? You buy it individually, it will work, and you buy with Office, then also it will work. But what do you prefer, right? You want one solution which can handle most of your enterprise's need, right? So that's what my answer is. Yes, every platform is good, right? Like, they can solve your problem, but their design, or any other company, the way most of the companies approach it, they have done one product for one product for one product for one. How many products do you want to buy? Here, our approach at DLT, and this is right from the start, and you will see some of my videos, right? Like since 2014, this is what I've been advocated. One platform, because blockchain is all about data management. If you can solve the data management, 80% all those problems, right? Like, I name it because the question has come, we TradeLens and all those things. You don't need individual products, one platform for all your enterprises need. And that's why, like, that's the big difference basically between all those and our DLT Labs platform.
Super, Neeraj, that's great. Thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it back over to Marta. Thank you for the opportunity, everyone. The session is recorded, and we will share the slides with Marta to distribute to those that attended.
Thank you, Shannon. This was great. Whole team, thank you so much. It was really engaging. A couple of reminders. We have upcoming webinars. Actually, the next webinar that will happen on August the 5th will be a project webinar, and it will talk about all the advancements and new features in Hyperledger Besto as it's going to its next version. And then we will have a talk by Hedera about their recent Hyperledger Labs project, which talks about the ordering services for Hyperledger Fabric. If you are hungry for more content, please go to our Hyperledger Global Forum YouTube channel. You can also see the presentations that are available publicly on the shed, and just listen in. It makes for a great substitution for podcasts, really. Please get involved. If you have any questions, email us, go join the community, and of course, please feel free to reach out if you have any more questions for our wonderful speakers today. And with that, thank you, stay safe and stay happy.